Useless old-timers like you are fired today. Haha, we don't need you. That's what the new branch manager said to me just a few days after she started at the bank where I'd been working for many years. I got it, smirking with a just you wait and see attitude as I left. The next day, a sudden account cancellation of 700 million took everyone by surprise. The bank was about to face a series of unexpected and unbelievable events, all starting from that cancellation. My name is Nancy Johnson, 55 years old. I've been working at this local bank since graduating from community college. I started in a clerical role and worked at the counter. Now I've stepped back to let the younger, adorable bank clerks handle the front desk. I only go to the counter when called upon by a customer. Otherwise, I stay behind the scenes, ready to support my colleagues whenever they need it. Watching them learn their trade and stand on their own feels like nurturing my own children. It's truly enjoyable. By the way, I've been married to my husband Bob for 32 years. He's 2 years older than I and works as an engineer at an electrical company. He's a straightforward guy who hates dishonesty. He's a great listener of my nonsense and a wonderful advisor, always giving me sound advice. We were blessed with 2 children, and now they are married and have moved out, so it's just me and Bob living a peaceful life. Recently, a new branch manager was assigned to our bank. Her name is Elizabeth Anderson, a relatively young woman just 40 years old. She's probably the youngest branch manager we've had in recent years. During her introduction at the morning meeting, she struck me as a strong-willed woman with a very direct manner of speaking. Now that I'm here, I'm going to revitalize this branch and achieve the highest performance nationwide. I need everyone's cooperation, so let's work hard together. She spoke with such clarity and confidence that I immediately knew she was the kind of person I usually find challenging to deal with. After the meeting, the assistant branch manager began showing Elizabeth around the bank and introducing her to the staff. After the morning meeting, we all started cleaning our respective areas of the bank, and I began wiping the windows in the waiting area. That's when Elizabeth and the assistant manager approached me. "Nancy, can I have a word?" "Sure, what's up?" I replied with a smile. "This is Elizabeth, our new branch manager. Elizabeth, this is Nancy Johnson, our most experienced staff member. She's been with us for about 35 years, so if you have any questions, she's the one to ask. She can solve just about anything." While the assistant manager was introducing me, Elizabeth looked me over as if evaluating my worth. "Pleased to meet you. I might not be as impressive as the assistant manager claims, but I do my best every day," I said, feeling a bit nervous in front of the imposing Elizabeth. "Nice to meet you too. You seem to suit window cleaning quite well." "Excuse me." As I was stunned, she chuckled. "I thought you were the janitor for a moment. Well, if I have any questions, I'll be sure to ask you, Nancy. Let's move on." Sure," I replied. "Sorry, Nancy," he said, and the two went straight to the conference room. Never before had I been mocked like that upon first meeting someone. "How rude," I asked a young colleague cleaning up some scattered magazines nearby. "Hey, do I really look like a janitor?" "Of course not. You certainly have a mood of a dependable mother, but definitely have the presence of a veteran banker, Nancy. That new branch manager is off to a bad start on her first day." I wonder if that's a compliment or not. It's hard to tell, I thought to myself as I regretted asking the younger colleague for her opinion. But maybe it's not entirely wrong to say I'm motherly. I'd admit I can be a bit naggy. I do tend to fuss over the younger staff. Even after that, the assistant manager continued to show Elizabeth around. The break room was buzzing with rumors about her. Listening in, it seemed that nobody had a good impression of her, which wasn't surprising after seeing her attitude. But maybe she's as capable as she looks. Perhaps it takes someone as assertive as her to lead the branch to greater heights, as she said in the morning assembly. I decided not to jump to conclusions and to observe for a while. When I got home, I told Bob about Elizabeth, the new branch manager. He seemed displeased too and said, "Sounds like a nasty piece of work. You can't just run away from your job, so try to avoid her as much as possible." I resolved to stay away from Elizabeth as much as I could. The next day, after the morning assembly, the assistant manager announced he would be away on a business trip for 4 days and asked us to manage things in his absence. Elizabeth sat down heavily at the manager's desk and began reading the newspaper. Unexpectedly, she called me over. "I'm reading the newspaper here," she said. Wondering what she meant, I saw her sigh in exasperation. Oh, don't you get it? Could you make me some coffee? Oh, okay, sure. Just a moment. Surprised and astonished by her arrogance, I went to prepare her coffee. In the break room, I overheard another male colleague venting to a female colleague. He was upset because Elizabeth had criticized his performance from last month. Indeed, he had the worst contract last month, but normally that's not the case. It was just a coincidence this time. I was told that my performance was not good enough and that I need to work harder to achieve results. It was just bad luck that the deals I was working on last month were delayed and only came through this month. It's simply coincidental that the numbers didn't show up in last month's report. What's with that attitude? As soon as she arrived, I found myself in the break room just to make coffee for her, and I really felt like complaining. I consider myself a grown adult, so I didn't say anything, but I really wanted to shout, "What the hell is this? This branch manager." From then on, every morning, as soon as she started reading the newspaper, she would order me to bring her coffee. Then, the day before the assistant manager was due back from his trip, Elizabeth came over to me again while I was working. "Nancy, can I have a word?" "Yes, what is it? What exactly is your job here?" she'd asked me abruptly. I was puzzled but answered, "Currently, I mainly assist with the counter tasks of everyone." "Is that all?" "Well, no. I also clean inside the bank and check the parking lot. So you're not really doing any significant work, are you?" I was taken aback. "Well, maybe that's true. You see, I've decided to introduce cleaning robots in the bank. That means your job will be redundant, won't it?" she said with an insinuating tone. What exactly do you mean by that?" Elizabeth put pressure on me. "Supporting counter operations, which even a single employee can handle, right? You're just there to help them. That seems like a waste of payroll to me. So are you saying I should resign?" "Yes, there's no need to keep someone who can't do productive work, right?" I just looked at Elizabeth in silence. She looked down on me. "Don't you think the company needs young, promising talent? It's better to get rid of unproductive, salary-stealing old-timers early on." Elizabeth's exaggerated smile then leaned in close to me and whispered in a small voice, "Useless old-timers like you are fired today. We don't need you. Haha." After hearing this, I realized I had no reason to continue working here. "I got it. If you're firing me, I'll accept it." We both agreed that Elizabeth would dismiss me. "I have a lot of unused vacation days. How long should I keep coming in?" "Oh, is that so? Well, you don't need to come in tomorrow." "I got it. It's been a short time since we met, but thank you for everything," I replied, then quickly started packing up for my departure. Elizabeth seemed pleased with my resignation and briskly returned to her desk. While I felt the pang of regret for being outmaneuvered into resigning, there was also a sense of liberation. And if she thinks I'm incompetent, she's probably mistaken. Imagining what might happen next, I couldn't help but smirk. "Nancy Smith is here to see you," a colleague at the reception called out to me. Having worked in customer service for over 30 years, I've naturally built close relationships with many clients. Smith, in particular, had been trusting me in using our bank for over 20 years. "Thank you, I'll be right there." This would be my last day to serve such clients. I wished I had more time to properly say goodbye. It was a great regret. Determined to serve my last client with all my heart, I headed to Smith's waiting seat. After finishing my duties for the last time, I bid farewell to my colleagues in the locker room. They were shocked by my sudden resignation and openly expressed their anger towards the manager. How much we rely on Nancy. That woman has no idea. Who are we going to turn to in difficult times now? Exactly, it's not just us. Many long-time customers depend on Nancy too, they said, their faces almost tearful. I'm concerned about the customers too. It's unfortunate that I have to leave without saying goodbye. But if anyone asks for me, please explain it to them. Of course, we got it. Thank you. I'm sorry for the suddenness. If you ever need help, feel free to call me, I said, bidding farewell to the bank where I had worked for so many years. The next day, during lunchtime, I received a message on social media from one of the young bank clerks. While sipping tea at home, I read, "Smith came in this morning and canceled all his deposits. He said if Nancy isn't here, there's no reason to keep his money with us." Smith, The only customer I had the chance to say goodbye to when I told him about my resignation yesterday seemed deeply disappointed, which probably led to his decision. I felt terribly sorry, but it was out of my hands now. In my heart, I thanked Smith for trusting me so much and for his gesture. By the way, Smith is the president of a very famous local trading company and was one of my biggest clients. I remember hearing his total assets were nearly $1 billion. The amount he had deposited with us was about $700 million. With such a large withdrawal, our branch must have suffered a significant blow. What? What do you mean? A customer who was with Nancy said. If Nancy is no longer here, there's no point in keeping their account with our bank. So they canceled everything. What? Really? Elizabeth was reportedly so surprised that she was speechless. I wish I could have seen her reaction with my own eyes. A week has passed since I left my job. During this time, I received several calls from my former colleagues informing me that many customers, just like Smith, were canceling their accounts upon learning of my departure. The staff knew that I hadn't left on my own accord but was forced out, so they were unable to persuade these customers to stay. Furthermore, the news of my departure spread from customer to customer, leading to dozens of inquiries each day at the branch. Following these inquiries, customers would come the next day to close their accounts. Elizabeth was reportedly pale with fear as the cancellations continued day after day. If this trend persisted, the survival of the branch itself was in jeopardy. She was living in fear, wondering when the next account cancellation would occur. Then I heard that an investigation had been launched by the headquarters. In just over a week since my departure, the total amount of canceled accounts had exceeded $2 billion. The assistant manager was confronting Elizabeth daily, filled with anger and panic. Why did you arbitrarily decide to fire Nancy? With Nancy's experience, it's obvious she had long-standing relationships with our clients. How are you going to handle this situation? Then Michael, the division manager from the headquarters, came for the investigation. It's been a while, Branch Manager Anderson. You seem to be having a tough time since your assignment. What happened? Michael, the division manager, welcomed Elizabeth, who was completely taken aback. Welcome, she greeted him in a flustered voice. The employees were apparently struggling to hold back their laughter. I heard you recently let go of Nancy, who had been working here for many years. Were you unaware of her reputation? Nancy was highly regarded even at the headquarters. Elizabeth was visibly shocked to learn about Nancy's reputation and seemed amazed. But she seemed so unassuming, she said. Appearances don't matter, Michael replied. Nancy was diligent and attentive, managing many long-term clients. Nancy was trusted so much by the clients that they felt comfortable only with her. Didn't you know she was repeatedly recognized in company-wide meetings? What did you say? Elizabeth asked. During this exchange, Michael spoke up calmly. Elizabeth, this situation is a result of your unilateral decision. You must be prepared to take responsibility. How could you not know that Nancy was just doing relaxed cleaning and occasionally helping others? Why didn't you inform me? Elizabeth tried to defend herself in panic, but the assistant manager retorted, Don't blame me. Judging Nancy as incompetent based on just a few days of observation is absurd. Plus, you fired her while I was away on business. If you had consulted me, I would have never allowed you to fire her. Elizabeth was left speechless and trembling. Michael continued, We will have a board meeting to discuss this matter. Also, we have reviewed your work history. You have increased contract numbers through forceful methods. There have been numerous complaints from both staff and customers at your previous branches, and all of them were related to your clients. Elizabeth looked at Michael with a tearful face, perturbed. He went on, Our bank's motto is sincerity to customers. Your approach would never earn their trust, and your failure to recognize a hardworking employee like Nancy shows you lack the ability to lead. Regardless of the outcome, Elizabeth, I don't see a bright future for you in this bank. After saying this, Michael left for the headquarters. Elizabeth collapsed on the spot, stunned and unable to move for a while, as reported by a colleague who witnessed the scene. During my time as a teller, I had actually been personally requested by many clients, including executives, CEOs, chairpersons, private investors, and owners of private businesses, mostly for substantial transactions. The amounts they deposited ranged from tens to hundreds of millions. Not knowing this and firing me unilaterally meant losing the trust of these clients who have faith in me, leading them to surely transfer their accounts elsewhere. It was something that could have easily been foreseen, yet all because Elizabeth rashly deemed me incompetent. Following this, Elizabeth was relieved of her position as branch manager and sent to work in a remote branch doing the same teller work she had looked down upon. However, her attitude and mannerisms continued to alienate both staff and customers, leaving her counter mostly empty. There's even talk of her being moved to a contractual position. If she'd had changed her attitude after being transferred, things might have turned out differently, but it seems her pride didn't allow it. I deeply pity her for that. Later, Michael and the assistant manager visited my home to personally apologize. "We are truly sorry for what happened to a model employee like you, Nancy. Elizabeth's rudeness will be apologized for by me on her behalf. Nancy, would you consider coming back to work at our bank? Nancy, I'm also asking you. Please, I'm truly sorry for the unpleasant experience you had. It was my oversight, but our branch really needs you. Please, please come back." Both of them bowed deeply, pleading repeatedly for me to return to work. Their desperate demeanor led me to ask for some time to think it over. That night, after discussing it with Bob, he said, "If they went to that length to ask you and if you think it's right, then maybe you should go back." Given that the root cause, Elizabeth, was going to be dealt with, and they were so earnest in wanting me back, I saw no reason to refuse. The next day, I contacted the assistant manager and successfully returned to work. Upon my return, I reached out to the customers who had canceled their accounts, and fortunately, most of them came back. The assistant manager was overjoyed that both the customers and I had returned. It was a rare sight to see a grown man cry and bow in gratitude, something you wouldn't see anywhere else. I heard that our branch was at risk of being absorbed, but this issue was resolved thanks to the return of the customers. With Elizabeth transferred, the assistant manager was promoted to branch manager. He might be a bit timid, but I think he's a good boss. He pays attention to those around him. Since he relies on me, I have to work hard to meet his expectations. This incident has made us both realize how important mutual trust is, and today I am working to my best at the bank, supporting my colleagues and each other.